This is your government video for the Anti-Federalists. At the Constitutional Convention, there were delegates at the end who either wanted to ratify the Constitution or who did not want to. Because they added in a number of things that were really controversial, there was a group of delegates who called themselves the Anti-Federalists who did not want to ratify the Constitution. The Anti-Federalists, and here are a couple of really important Anti-Federalists, but they thought that the government that was created in the Constitution didn't have enough checks and balances, and there were a couple of clauses in there that would create a very large federal government. They preferred small government or states governments instead of federal government. And they did not believe that the structure that they created in the Constitution would make sure that states' rights or limited federal government would be ensured. And they were very concerned about that. They also tend to disagree with complete authority in the government by elitists. They tend to be really supportive of individual personal freedoms and states' rights. And so they believe that the system that was set up in the Constitution gave almost all the power to elected officials and ultimately the federal government over the states. Their main argument is that the only way for the citizens to know if your elected officials, so your president, your senators, your representatives, are they doing well or not, is for you to literally travel to Washington, D.C. and see them in action and see what laws they're passing. Well, the physical distance between people and where the federal government is located is really harmful. At the time, we don't have internet, we don't have planes. You have to travel long distances to view your government in action, or you have to trust that the newspaper articles that are coming out are accurate. Most of the newspapers and printing presses at the time were owned by political elites, people who were in politics and were very wealthy business people, and they also happened to be Federalists. So this created a major problem for the Anti-Federalists because they didn't believe that average citizens would get good, truthful information to help them determine whether they should vote for or re-vote for elected officials. And they would really prefer that there was significantly more power to the state government, or at least more limitations on the federal government so it didn't grow out of control. Ultimately, the battle between the Anti-Federalists and Federalists is going to be about a Bill of Rights. The Anti-Federalists wanted to add in a Bill of Rights, which would be a list of amendments about how the people's rights could not be taken away by government. And so they ultimately came up with a deal with the Federalists that if they added a Bill of Rights, that the Federalists would agree to those particular rights, and then they would ratify the Constitution. What happens is they get the Constitution ratified, and then in the first session of Congress, they write the Bill of Rights and add it. They actually debated 13 amendments, and only 10 of them made it into the Bill of Rights. So the first 10 amendments to the Constitution are referred to as the Bill of Rights. Those Bill of Rights, which has things like your freedom of speech and your right to an attorney, those protect you from the federal government taking away your rights. And at the time, it only applied to federal government because the Constitution applied to federal government. You still had a right to check and balance and vote on your state government and your state constitution if you wanted. Now, most of the time, people understand that the Federalists were the ones who wrote the Federalist Papers, but after reading a bunch of these essays, the Anti-Federalists actually wrote their own series of Anti-Federalist papers.